Thank you very much, Chair. In fact, members have made lots of comments, and there are a number of questions that they've asked, and can you hear me? Am I mic'less still? I don't have a voice that I can carry. I used to be a good teacher before. What? I'm just going to go through the list of what I think are questions that people have asked. But I also think I want to later address myself to the fact that to the issue of a further investigation, and maybe just to ask the Chair, when you speak about the Commission of Inquiry, which Commission of Inquiry are you speaking about? So that I can respond.
No, Minister, I was speaking about the Commission of Inquiry you said you supported as the Minister.
Into state capture.
In the state capture.
Okay. No, that's fine. Thank you very much. Didler Tulia summons me. The Honourable Member Mazzoni's question. The issue is that the top 6 often engages with its deployees, and I considered this a normal engagement in that kind of respect. What came out of that discussion was that we presented to the top 6 something similar that we presented to you today, and the top 6 had we had long discussion, and we were then sent back, the DM&I, and we were told that the government will have to sort it out, so the President, the Deputy President, myself had to sort it out. And we've established a committee to that effect that has a number of people in it, and really what it is to do is to look at the legal opinions of Eskom, the legal opinions of my department, to subject it to an independent legal opinion, and then to make a decision out of that. The reason why it's in terms of my affidavit part A, that I've decided to, sorry, I'm just taking these things away, I can't get it now. But I decided not to oppose. It was largely to do with the fact that I've actually been noted there as somebody who have made the appointment. Now, I've not made the appointment of Brian Molefe at all. In fact, and this will answer the questions later on as well, there's a memoranda of incorporation, and the court will have to address itself to that as well. Mr. Molefe, in terms of Eskom, was appointed in terms of the 2014 memorandum of incorporation. Chairperson, this also answers your question. He was, and in that memorandum of incorporation, it says that, if I'm looking at my affidavit, it says that in 2014 paragraph 14.3.4, the 2014 MRI did not require the Minister to be noted as a party to the employment agreement of the group's chief executive. In the 2016, remember I was appointed in 2014, in 2016 we relooked the MOI, and paragraph 14.3.4 of the 2016 MOI requires the minister to be noted as a party to the contract of employment between the company and the group chief executive. Now, there was another question asked of me, where it says, the Honourable Member Mazzoni also asked for the details of the agreement of the 30 million. I think I passed that on to Eskom. In fact, I also passed on to Eskom where the issues around retrenchment, resignation and so forth. In my affidavit I state, now my affidavit is done under oath. So if I lie in my affidavit, then that's kind of the end of me as a public representative. But more importantly, it's probably the end of me as a person who I know. So, I say in my affidavit, I did not in any way act unreasonably when I learned of the true facts, namely that Mr. Molefe had not resigned. Remember the 11th of November, I actually, said, and I said it earlier, I think members didn't listen to me, but I said it earlier, that I said I was sad to see him go, but I wish him well with his resignation. So I did believe that there was a resignation. In fact, the first time when I saw the 30 million rand in the newspaper, that was the first time I knew about it. But that was because Eskom thought that they were acting in terms of the MOI of 2014. And between 2014's MOI, Molefe's employment and reinstatement, and the 2016 MOI, there is about 3 months difference. And that's the issue. Now the court will have to address itself to this matter. And I have agreed in my affidavit that whatever the court decides, I will agree with that. So that's the issue. The advert for the CEO, the board will talk to. Let me talk, Chairperson, what the process of governance is in terms of my department. Now remember that my department was established initially as the Department of Privatization many years ago. So the department has 6 public enterprises within it. And the department, so much of what exists at the moment in the department exists because of historical relations too. So the department has a shareholder compact that is an agreement drawn between myself as minister and any one of the 6 state-owned companies. And that shareholder compact is measured annually. So annually, externally, by the Auditor General or the company that is the auditor for that state-owned company, they will be assessed. So sometimes they meet the targets 56%, sometimes they meet 90% of the targets, sometimes they meet 80% of the targets, and there are consequences for whether or not you meet the targets below 60%. So, and of course it's quite an intensive engagement. So the state-owned companies are governed, the relationship is governed in that way. Then there is the Companies Act, and we draw for each one of the state-owned companies a memorandum of incorporation. And the memorandum of incorporation Also deals with issues like the appointment of CEs, the kind of operational things within the company. And it also deals with the materiality and significance and materiality document also deals with the various levels of decision making within whether I make the decision or whether the board makes the decision. So it's not something we do because we think, oh, this morning we wake up, how am I going to run the state-owned company? It is very carefully legislated and very carefully, there are real memoranda and legislation that governs this, including, except for the now, all the state-owned companies actually have their own legislation as well. So Eskom is governed by the Eskom Conversion Act of 2001. Can we improve these acts? Yes, we can. But what the process is now is to try and deal with these governance matters in relation to the state-owned company reform process, which the Deputy President chairs. Now, thus far, because there are governance issues and governance problems within the state-owned companies, there are other problems in the state-owned companies as well that we've got to deal with. And I'll speak about how I want to deal with the issue. I was going to do it in my budget speech, but I might as well do it now, with the issues in Eskom as well. But the idea is to have an overarching shareholder management bill. And now it's taken a long time for this thing to come about. But we are just at the point now where we've submitted to Cabinet and all the ministers are now responding to the shareholder management bill. And the idea there is to stop the fragmentation that we've had in state-owned companies over the last how many years. But also to standardize procedures, to ensure that we have it across all 22, at least the 22 big state-owned companies, and so forth. Having said that, the governance issues, state-owned companies can do much better, but I do think it does belie the fact that state-owned companies actually have been the hard metal of the backbone of the economy of our country, especially the two large ones, Transnet and Eskom. What did I do to ensure ongoing capacity? Is this my water? In Eskom, Honorable Member Luyenge, there's actually, there are 42,000 workers in Eskom. And I appointed, the board appointed Mr. Koko, and I supported that appointment. Mr. Koko, at this stage, as you've all mentioned in various ways today, has been asked to take leave while we complete the Cliff Decker investigation. And that's an investigation into all these Sunday Times newspapers. And that report is supposed to be due quite soon. But there is a leadership gap at Eskom at the moment. And I suppose in my reasoning, after Mr. Molefe left, that gap was very, very prominent. And you've seen in the last 7 to 8 months all the stuff that's been happening around Eskom. And so, whilst there are incredible technical skills, there are engineers, there are civil engineers, there are they're just nuclear physicists. There are just a number of highly skilled people in the company. But we don't have the requisite leadership in the company. And that's what I was worried. That's what I'm worried about in terms of the present where we are at the moment. Salaries, the two large state-owned companies, CEs, earn 7 and 8 million. The rest of them earn in line with the number of those employed, etc. So they earn almost half or less than half of what the others earn. Of course, in the SOC reform process, we've passed the remuneration of non-executive directors and executive directors that will feed into the overall SOC state-owned company reform, where the salaries will be better managed. Because there's a very strong feeling in Cabinet that that when you work for a state-owned company, because it's both commercial and developmental, you are expected to almost be conscious of not having salaries higher than most of us. I don't know if that means we're going to bring the salaries down, because these are large companies. Eskom has 42,000 workers, Transit has 67,000 workers. They are large companies, and so we'll have to look at a proper median for the payment of CEs. Look, I just think it's too much. But I think I've got to subject myself to a legal process because it's governed by the labour law. It's governed by how they've been paid over a period of time and so forth. So, but I do hear the point quite starkly, and I think at some point we should be bringing the SOC reform process in terms of remuneration and board appointments to the portfolio committee. Eskom is very important to this country, and I agree with Honourable Member Molefe. It's important because it generates the electricity for the whole country. 95% of electricity is generated from Eskom. And there is a question mark. And the chair has raised this matter too, and many members have raised it. Brian Molefe will never be cleared until there's an investigation into the state capture report. And so, but he can't do that. He can't clear himself. That is something that we have to do. I heard Honourable Member Gordon saying today that, and many other members also called for an investigation. Now, I was going to report this in my budget speech, but I do want an investigation into procurement at Eskom. My department has already drawn up the terms of reference for it, and that's separate to whatever the Parliament decides. But we will have an investigation, and at some point I thought we should do it with the SIU, because we already have an agreement with the SIU, and they've done a number of investigations into Eskom already. But we want to do it, and it will have to deal with all 7 investigations into Eskom, all inconclusive investigations in the last 5 years. And so it has to bring all of those together, as well as do the investigations into the matters that are now before us. And look at, in specific, look at procurement at Eskom. Was there due diligence done around the 30 million rand? I think Eskom can respond to that. I'm very conscious of the Powers and Privileges Act, Honourable Member Shivambu. And therefore, whatever I'm saying in this room, I'm conscious of the fact that I'm a Member of Parliament and I'm governed by the Powers and Privileges Act. I'm an Honourable Member Sienna's, and thank you very much for kind words. But also, let me just say, did President Jacob Zuma instruct me? Now, as is normal, I actually went to tell him, when Eskom told me that they were going to appoint Brian Molefe as the CE, or reinstate him, I told Jacob Zuma that. I told the President it's a no. I always do so. I went to the officials of the ANC and I also told them. And I met with all 6 of them, and so it's not a thing that I wouldn't do. But did I get an instruction? Now, if you all look in my eyes, as you asked me that, no. I did not get an instruction to do so. I said earlier in my opening remarks that when I stopped the 30 million, and Honourable Member Gordon is maybe right, I should have allowed Brian to go and litigate, but I didn't do that at the time. Because the 4 options he put before us, or not he put before us, there were 4 options that, when I told Eskom that they must renegotiate, the 4 options they put before me, that is an alternate, I said go get an alternate pension proposal. It was not possible because it has to will change the pension fund rules. The settlement payment, and I was not happy with the settlement payment for probably exact reason members around the table are not happy with the settlement payment, because that would then be a golden handshake. Then the third one is that he resigns with a settlement. And if he doesn't agree, then we go to court. And the last one is rescind based on the fact that I didn't want them to pay out the 30 million rand, and Molefe remains CEO of Eskom. And those are the proposals that were put before me. And the proposals put before me, they also said, the board said that they've made a decision, and I mean, I'm sure you're going to ask the board members, that they prefer the option of rescinding, or they've taken the option to rescind based on my request, and Brian remains the CEO of Eskom. Now, the first time I spoke about it into the public space was at a press conference I held probably a week ago. And at that press conference, I said that based on the legality of it, that's what I will do. I will support the Brian Molefe coming back as CEO. But I said very distinctly based on whether or not it is legal. The other issue that I need to raise is the fact that, based on whether it's legal, the board also assured me, and I had no reason to doubt, and I put that in my affidavit as well. I had no reason to doubt that the board, I believed on the strength of the legal advice received by Eskom and communicated to me, and which I had no reason to doubt, that once the contract of early retirement has been mutually rescinded on the basis of an error, it would inevitably mean that the status quo would have to be restored. And that I make in my affidavit. Should we have a retired judge?
Let us listen and ask questions thereafter. Let us note our questions so that we get the full information and interrogate the information that we get. I have subjected myself to court proceedings. Eskom has subjected itself to court proceedings, and Brian Molefe is subjected to court proceedings. So I'm also hoping that greater clarity on all of these matters taken to court will be before us. The court sits on the 30th of May.